Here's something nobody ever warned you about, and it might be the most important thing you hear today. The moment she starts pulling away, something happens inside your brain that feels completely logical but is actually destroying your chances. Your mind tells you to reach out. To explain yourself. To craft that one perfect message that makes everything go back to normal. And almost every man on the planet listens to that voice because it feels like the right thing to do. It feels like effort. It feels like strength. It feels like you're fighting for something real. But that voice is lying to you. What feels like caring to you registers as pressure to her. What feels like effort to you looks like desperation to her. What feels like love to you is literally the exact fuel that's pushing her further away with every single message you send. And the painful part is you won't feel it happening until it's already done. Here's what's actually going on beneath the surface. Every connection between two people runs on patterns. Invisible rhythms that both people settle into without even noticing. You text, she replies. You show up, she responds. You put in effort, she receives it. That cycle repeats enough times and it becomes the foundation of how she understands you. It becomes her expectation. Then she starts pulling back. And here's the moment everything depends on. She already knows what you're going to do next. Not because she's calculated or manipulative, but because the pattern has been set. She knows more messages are coming. More effort is coming. More of you reaching across the distance trying to pull her back in. And when you do exactly that, nothing in her mind changes. You're just replaying a script she's already read. You become predictable. And predictable is the opposite of attractive. But when you go completely silent, when you do the one thing she didn't expect, her brain stalls. It genuinely doesn't know what to do with that information. Because now the man she thought she had completely figured out has done something she cannot explain. And the human brain is absolutely wired to chase what it cannot explain. It cannot let go of things it doesn't understand. It has to investigate. It has to find resolution. That internal search, that quiet obsession with figuring out what changed, that is the shift you've been trying to create with every message you sent. And you never could have gotten there by sending more. You could only get there by sending nothing. Silence doesn't pause the dynamic between you. It completely rewrites it. And that rewrite happens entirely inside her mind without you saying a single word to make it occur. That is the trap most men never escape. And that is exactly where this changes. Most men think silence is passive. They think going quiet means giving up. They think it means you have nothing left to say and nowhere left to go. And that misunderstanding is exactly why most men never discover how powerful it actually is. Silence is not passive. Silence is not weakness. Silence is not surrender. Silence is a transfer. It moves the conversation out of your hands and places it directly inside her mind. And once it's there, you don't have to do anything else. Because her own brain becomes the engine that drives everything forward. Here is the psychology that changes how you see this completely. The human brain is physically incapable of leaving things unfinished. It's not a choice. It's not a personality trait. It's hardwired into every person walking the planet. Incomplete things create tension. Unresolved questions create obsession. Unanswered moments create a mental loop that keeps running whether the person wants it to or not. Scientists identified this decades ago and called it the Zeigarnik Effect. Your brain clings to incomplete experiences far more aggressively than it holds on to things that are finished and resolved. It's why a cliffhanger at the end of an episode keeps you thinking about a show at 2 in the morning. It's why an argument that never got proper closure replays in your head for weeks. Your brain refuses to file away what it hasn't finished processing. Now apply that to what happens when you go silent. You become the unfinished story. You become the unanswered question. You become the open loop she cannot close no matter how hard she tries. And her mind will try. It will keep pulling your name back to the surface at the most random moments. While she's driving. While she's with friends. While she's lying in bed trying to fall asleep. The loop keeps running. She starts asking herself questions she never expected to be asking. Why did he stop reaching out? Did something happen? Did I push him away? Is he talking to someone else now? Does he even care anymore? And notice something critical about those questions. Every single one of them is about you. You didn't send clever messages to get inside her head. You didn't perform or strategize or manipulate. You simply removed yourself. And the removal did more work than your presence ever managed to accomplish. Because here is the truth about presence that nobody wants to admit. Constant presence becomes invisible. When something is always there, the brain stops registering it as significant. It becomes background noise. Expected. Unremarkable. But absence? Absence is deafening. Absence fills every quiet moment. Absence demands to be acknowledged even when she's actively trying to ignore it. And when she finally realizes she's thought about you more in 3 days of silence than she did in 3 weeks of you trying, she's going to face a question that has no comfortable answer. Why do you matter more now that you're gone? That question is where everything begins to shift in your favor. Here is a question most men never stop long enough to ask themselves. Why do people fight harder to keep things they almost lost than things they know will always be there? Think about that for a second. Not in relationships. In anything. The parking spot you almost missed. The opportunity that nearly slipped through. The item that was almost out of stock. The moment something becomes scarce, something shifts in how you value it. Your brain recalibrates instantly. What felt ordinary a second ago suddenly feels essential. That same mechanism is running inside her mind right now. And most men are accidentally working against it every single day. Here is what constant availability actually communicates without you realizing it. When you text back immediately every time, when you rearrange your schedule around hers, when you stay fully present and completely giving regardless of how little she's matching your energy, you are sending a signal. Not the signal you think you're sending. Not dedication. Not love. Not strength. You are telling her that your time costs nothing. That your attention has no limit. That no matter what she does or doesn't do, you will still be there waiting. And people do not fight to keep things they believe will always be available. They take them for granted. Every single time. This is not about being cold. This is not about pretending you don't care. This is about something far more fundamental than strategy. It is about self-respect. A man who respects himself does not keep showing up fully for someone who is showing up halfway. He does not keep pouring genuine energy into a dynamic that isn't being honored. He does not accept being treated like a convenience and respond by giving more. Because every time he does, he teaches her exactly how to treat him. And she learns that lesson whether either of them intends it or not. When you go silent, something changes in the signal you're broadcasting. Without a single word, you communicate that your presence is not guaranteed. That your attention is something earned, not something automatically distributed. That you have a standard for how your energy gets spent and you are willing to enforce it even when it's uncomfortable. That your world does not revolve around whether she notices you today. That energy is genuinely rare. Most men never project it because most men are too afraid of what walking away might cost them. But here is what they miss completely. The cost of staying and chasing is always higher than the cost of walking away with dignity. Because chasing someone who isn't choosing you doesn't just fail to attract her. It slowly dismantles your own sense of worth from the inside. Every unanswered message chips away at something. Every ignored effort rewrites the story you tell yourself about your own value. Silence stops that process cold. It draws a line. It says this is where I stop giving what isn't being received. And that line, that quiet unmovable boundary, communicates more genuine confidence than anything you could ever say out loud. People are not ultimately attracted to effort. They are attracted to value. And value is never proven by how much you give. It is proven by how clearly you understand what you deserve and how willing you are to walk away from anything less. She cannot feel that from your words. She can only feel it from your actions. And right now the most powerful action available to you is the one that requires you to do absolutely nothing at all. There is something happening in the background of your situation that most dating advice will never have the honesty to explain to you. Not every person who keeps you around actually wants you the way you want them to want you. Read that again slowly. Some people maintain your presence in their life not because they are building something real with you. Not because they see a future. Not because the connection means to them what it means to you. They keep you close because of how you make them feel about themselves. And there is a significant difference between someone wanting you and someone wanting what you give them. Every message you send is a deposit. Every compliment lands in an account. Every time you make yourself completely available regardless of the effort she's returning, you are adding to a balance she has learned to draw from without thinking twice about the cost to you. And the account keeps growing because you keep depositing. She doesn't sit down and consciously decide to use you for validation. That's not how this works. It happens gradually and invisibly. She just knows somewhere beneath the surface that when her confidence dips, there's someone who will restore it. When she needs to feel chosen, there's someone who will choose her without hesitation. When the world feels uncertain, there's someone whose attention is completely guaranteed. You became her emotional stability net. And stability nets only get noticed when they're no longer there. Think about what that means for how she experiences your presence day to day. Your attention became the background hum of her life. Consistent. Expected. Unremarkable. Not because you're unremarkable, but because anything that never disappears eventually stops being noticed. The brain filters out constants. It pays attention to changes. And you have been a constant for long enough that she stopped registering you as something she could actually lose. Now watch what silence does to all of that. The deposits stop. The account goes quiet. The automatic supply of attention and validation and emotional reassurance that she had quietly built her confidence around simply stops arriving. And now she feels something she genuinely did not anticipate feeling. Your absence. Not just the absence of messages. The absence of the feeling your attention created. The absence of the certainty that someone out there was fully focused on her. The absence of something she never consciously valued until the moment it was no longer there. That absence creates a specific kind of internal discomfort that cannot be reasoned away. She can tell herself she doesn't care. She can stay busy. She can fill the space with other things. But the discomfort keeps surfacing because the brain does not simply move on from things it has grown dependent on. It searches for them. And when she finally picks up her phone and sends that casual message acting like nothing significant is happening, understand what that moment actually represents. She ran out of reserves. Your absence became louder than her resistance. Something she had been taking completely for granted revealed itself as something she actually didn't want to lose. And you created that entire shift without saying a single word. That is not manipulation. That is simply what happens when you stop funding something that was never fully investing in you. The truth always surfaces when the noise stops. And silence is the only thing that makes the noise stop long enough for both of you to finally hear it. Let me ask you something real. What if this was never about her coming back? What if this entire situation is actually a test of who you are when nobody is validating you? Because the hardest part of silence is not what it does to her. The hardest part is what it forces you to face inside yourself. When you stop reaching out, you don't just remove communication. You remove your quickest source of reassurance. No more checking if she replied. No more tiny dopamine hit when your phone lights up. No more relief from uncertainty. It's just you. Your thoughts. Your emotions. Your ego. And that can feel unbearable at first. There will be moments when the urge hits you hard. You'll think about a memory. A joke you shared. A place you went together. And your mind will start negotiating with you. Just send something casual. Just check in. It's not chasing if it's simple. That voice will sound reasonable. Calm. Logical. It's not logical. It's discomfort trying to escape itself. Most men don't lose women because they care too much. They lose control because they cannot sit with temporary emotional pain. The second it feels heavy, they react. They text. They explain. They overextend. They try to reduce anxiety instead of building strength. And every time you give in to that impulse, you train yourself to believe you cannot handle being alone with your own feelings. But every time you resist it, something powerful happens. You build emotional discipline. You prove to yourself that missing someone does not mean you must chase them. That feeling lonely does not mean you are unworthy. That uncertainty does not require immediate action. You start separating emotion from behavior. You feel everything, but you don't let it control your decisions. That shift changes you at the core. Because a man who can control his impulses moves differently in every area of life. He doesn't beg for clarity. He doesn't panic when energy shifts. He doesn't scramble to secure attention. He observes. He evaluates. He responds intentionally. Silence becomes training. Training in patience. Training in restraint. Training in self-trust. You begin to realize that your stability does not depend on someone else choosing you. Your mood does not have to rise and fall based on a notification. Your confidence does not need to be fed daily by someone else's interest. And the paradox is powerful. The moment you genuinely detach from needing her response, your presence becomes stronger. Your energy becomes calmer. When she does reach out, you won't respond from anxiety. You'll respond from clarity. Or you might decide not to respond at all. That is real power. Not control over her emotions. Control over your own. Silence is not empty space. It is growth happening where nobody can see it. It is you becoming someone who does not collapse under uncertainty. Someone who values himself enough to wait for reciprocity. Someone who understands that self-respect is more attractive than relentless pursuit. And whether she returns or not, that version of you wins either way. Before you think this is a magic formula, hear this clearly. Silence is powerful. But it is not a spell. It will not hypnotize someone into loving you. It will not rebuild attraction that completely died months ago. It will not override a decision she has already made with certainty. And if you use it as a trick while secretly hoping it forces her back, you've already missed the point. Sometimes you will go quiet, and nothing happens. No message. No check-in. No curiosity text. Just space. Just distance. Just the reality that she was already halfway out the door before you stopped talking. And that outcome? It hurts. But it also tells the truth. Because if your absence doesn't move her at all, that means your presence wasn't truly valued the way you believed it was. And chasing harder would not have fixed that. It only would have delayed you facing it. You need to understand something most men avoid. Closure doesn't come from a final conversation. It comes from accepting behavior as the answer. If someone can watch you disappear and feel nothing strong enough to reach out, that is information. Painful information. But valuable. Silence reveals reality. It shows you whether the connection had depth or whether it was supported mostly by your effort. It shows you whether she was invested or simply comfortable. It shows you whether you were building something mutual or maintaining something one-sided. And here's the real shift. The purpose of silence is not to make her miss you. The purpose is to stop you from abandoning yourself. When you keep chasing someone who is unsure about you, you slowly train your mind to believe you must earn basic interest. You start negotiating your standards. You tolerate delays. Mixed signals. Inconsistent energy. You call it patience. You call it understanding. But deep down, it chips away at your confidence. Silence interrupts that pattern. It forces you to choose dignity over desperation. It forces you to say, without words, if I am not clearly wanted, I will not overextend. That decision alone rebuilds something inside you that chasing slowly erodes. And here's the part that changes everything. Whether she comes back or not, you win when you stop over-pursuing someone who isn't meeting you halfway. If she returns with genuine effort, you now have leverage and clarity. If she doesn't, you preserved your self-respect and freed your energy for someone aligned with you. That is strength. Not loud. Not dramatic. Not emotional. Stable. Grounded. Unshaken. Silence is not about controlling her feelings. It's about mastering your reactions. It's about understanding that your value does not fluctuate based on one person's attention. It's about refusing to beg for what should be given freely. If this changed the way you see your situation, subscribe right now for more direct, no-nonsense insight that actually builds you up instead of feeding your ego. And remember this. Sometimes the strongest message you can send is none at all.